Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are very happy to share with you different stories about love and betrayal from around the world. So let's begin today's story journey. On a summer night in Buenos Aires, the air was filled with a warm temperature and romantic atmosphere. Lucas Mendoza sat on the spacious balcony of his home. In front of him was a candlelit dinner he had carefully prepared. On the table was a bottle of fine Argentine Malbec wine and a small blue jewelry box. His phone screen lit up, and his wife Elena's text message appeared. Darling, I also want to spend our 10th anniversary with you. But the client's project has encountered an urgent problem. I must work overtime to deal with it. Love you. We'll be home later. Lucas frowned slightly. This was the third time Elena had missed their important dates because of work. He sighed softly, picked up his phone, and casually browsed social media. Just then, a photo shared by his good friend Carlos shocked him like a bolt of lightning. Elena, wearing a deep red evening gown that Lucas had never seen before, was toasting with an elegant, gray-haired gentleman at La Belle Époque, the most expensive French restaurant in the city. The photo timestamp showed it was posted just 10 minutes ago. Lucas's fingers lingered on the keyboard for a moment, and finally he replied with only a brief message. No problem. Please continue working overtime. He stood up, extinguished the candles on the dinner table, and gently closed the jewelry box containing a handcrafted platinum necklace. At that moment, it seemed as if 10 years of marriage had also been extinguished in his heart. He walked into the master bedroom, took out a suitcase he had prepared long ago from deep inside the closet, and began packing his belongings one by one. Each shirt, each book, each document was like a fragment of his life that now needed to be reassembled. 2 hours later, Lucas drove to a modern-style apartment building in the Palermo district. This was a luxury home he had purchased as an investment 3 years ago, never telling Elena about it. The apartment was spacious and bright, with a magnificent view of Buenos Aires through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He put down his luggage, poured himself a whiskey, and walked to the balcony to gaze at the distant city lights. 10 years, he whispered, raising his glass in a mock toast to the air. What a perfect anniversary gift. Their meeting 10 years ago seemed like just yesterday. It was at the opening reception of Buenos Aires Design Week, where Lucas attended as a representative of his engineering company, while Elena was a young designer just beginning to make a name for herself. She stood next to her installation art piece, enthusiastically explaining her design concepts to visitors. Lucas was attracted by her talent and energy, approached to talk, and discovered they had an amazing resonance in architectural aesthetics. Architecture is not just about structure and function, Elena said with sparkling eyes. It is music frozen in time, a material expression of human emotions. These words deeply moved Lucas, who as a structural engineer focused on technology and safety, rarely heard such poetic views of architecture. Their conversation extended from design to music, literature, and travel, and before they knew it, the reception had ended, leaving them the last guests to leave the venue. Their first date was at a small cafe in the Recoleta district, where Elena wore simple jeans and a white t-shirt, a stark contrast to her glamorous image at the reception, yet making Lucas feel closer to her. She talked about her studies at the Design Academy, describing how she supported expensive tuition through scholarships and working part-time. My father is an ordinary electrician. My mother teaches at an elementary school. Elena smiled and said, they supported my dreams as best they could, although they may never fully understand my art. Lucas also shared his story, coming from a middle-class family in Córdoba province, earning an engineering scholarship through his talent for mathematics and physics, joining an international engineering firm after graduation, and gradually rising to project manager. Their backgrounds were so similar, both climbing upward step by step through talent and effort. During their courtship, Lucas and Elena explored every corner of Buenos Aires, from the antique markets in San Telmo to the colorful streets of La Boca, from the modern art museum to traditional tango performances. They shared dreams by the banks of the Rio de la Plata, discussed eternal themes of life and art in Recoleta Cemetery, and spent peaceful weekends on the islands of the Tigre Delta. After just 6 months, on a full moon night, Lucas knelt by the fountain at Posadas Square and proposed to Elena. I know this might be too fast, he said nervously, but I've never been more certain of anything. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. creating a life that is both beautiful and strong, like the buildings we each create. Elena accepted with tears in her eyes, and the couple held a simple, warm wedding the following spring, inviting only their closest family and friends. During their first year of marriage, they rented a small apartment in the San Telmo district, where Elena began building her client network while Lucas focused on key projects at his company. In the evenings, they would often spread out blueprints in their small living room, with Elena designing and Lucas calculating structural feasibility, their professional skills perfectly complementing each other. In their third year, Lucas received an important promotion, and Elena's design studio was beginning to take shape. They bought an apartment in the Recoleta district, with enough space for both work and life. The small room next to the bedroom was planned for a future child, but they decided to wait a few more years, focusing first on their career development. The turning point began in their fifth year of marriage. Elena received an important commission to design a new exhibition space for the Montero Art Gallery. Victor Montero was an important figure in Buenos Aires art world, with a prestigious family background and extensive international connections. This project was a major breakthrough for Elena's career, one that could bring her name into higher-end design circles. "This opportunity is too important," Elena excitedly told Lucas. "Victor has influence not only in Argentina, but he also has branch galleries in Paris and New York. If this project succeeds, there could be more international opportunities." Lucas fully supported his wife, even using his professional knowledge to help her solve technical problems in the design. In the first few months, it was normal for Elena to work until late at night, and Lucas understood her efforts, often preparing late-night snacks or picking her up from the studio. After the design was completed and implemented, the Montero Gallery held a grand reopening party, where Elena was the center of attention and her design received unanimous praise. That night, Lucas first noticed Victor's special attention to Elena. The older gallery owner kissed Elena's hand with the gesture of a European aristocrat, the intimate distance as he whispered in her ear, and the subtle exchange of glances between them all made Lucas feel a bit uncomfortable. But he quickly attributed this to his own overinterpretation. After all, the social manners in art circles were different from what he was used to in the engineering world. "Victor has invited me to the opening exhibition at his Paris gallery next month," Elena told Lucas on the way home. "It's an excellent opportunity to learn about the international market." "That's wonderful," Lucas responded sincerely. "I can take time off to go together, and we can have a little holiday in Paris." Elena's smile froze for a moment, but quickly returned to normal. "Oh, that might not be convenient. This is a professional visit. The schedule will be very tight, and I know your project is entering a critical phase right now." Not wanting to add pressure to his wife, Lucas agreed to her traveling alone. After that Paris trip, Elena seemed like a different person. She began buying luxury brand clothing and accessories, increasingly mentioning international perspective and elite circles in her conversations, and showing subtle impatience with the places they used to go and gatherings with friends. "Lucas, we can't always limit ourselves to the same social circle," Elena complained after a friend's gathering. "Don't you want to expand your network? Meet people who really have influence." "Our friends are very sincere," Lucas replied, confused. "Carlos and Maria have been our friends for over 10 years. Success doesn't mean you have to change your circle of friends." "This isn't about changing friends. It's about growth," Elena retorted. "How can we improve if we always stay in our comfort zone?" Such conversations became more frequent, and Lucas began to realize that their values were quietly diverging. Elena increasingly attended various high-end art events, often returning home late at night, and when Lucas asked about the details of these events, her answers were always vague and brief. He noticed that she no longer left her phone charging by the bedside, but carried it with her at all times, setting a new password he didn't know. On their 8th anniversary, Lucas planned a surprise weekend trip, but Elena canceled at the last minute, citing an unavoidable international buyer meeting at the Montero Gallery. Lucas went alone to Punta del Este, Uruguay, and spent a lonely weekend in the pre-booked Ocean View suite. Upon his return, he found a receipt for a Paris hotel in Elena's design bag, dated the very day of their anniversary. Doubts began to accumulate in Lucas's heart, but he was unwilling to easily question 10 years of marriage. He tried various ways to reconnect their relationship: romantic dinners, weekend trips, even proposing to attend cross-disciplinary seminars on design and engineering together. But Elena always had various reasons to decline or go through the motions. The first crack in the truth appeared on an ordinary Thursday night. Lucas returned home unexpectedly early due to a canceled project meeting and discovered an unfamiliar cologne scent in the bedroom. Elena claimed it was just a newly purchased room fragrance. But when she went to the bathroom, Lucas noticed a man's cufflink on the bedside table, with a classic style that was clearly not his. When he picked up the cufflink, Elena came out of the bathroom, her face suddenly turning pale. "That belongs to a client who left it at the studio," she quickly explained, almost snatching the cufflink. "I brought it home to return tomorrow." Lucas didn't expose this obvious lie on the spot. Their bedroom had never been a place to store client items. That night, for the first time, he lay awake all night, listening to Elena's calm breathing beside him, feeling an unprecedented strangeness and distance. In the following weeks, Lucas began consciously collecting clues. He noticed many slots marked VM project discussion on Elena's schedule, far more than a normal project would require. Once, pretending his phone was out of battery, he borrowed Elena's phone to make a call and unintentionally saw an unread message from VM. "Same place tonight. Can't wait to see you again." The most decisive evidence appeared on the opening night of an art exhibition. Lucas wasn't supposed to attend, but a client changed plans at the last minute and invited him along. In a secluded corner of the venue, he saw Elena and Victor standing extremely close, with Victor's hand intimately resting on Elena's waist, while Elena tilted her head back, her lips almost touching Victor's ear. Their posture could not be explained by any ordinary colleague or friend relationship. Lucas didn't expose them on the spot, but quietly left, spending the entire night contemplating how to face this cruel fact. The next day, he left home early citing work, but actually went to a law firm to consult about divorce matters. The lawyer advised him to collect more evidence, especially regarding how Elena might have used marital resources to support her career. In Argentina, infidelity itself doesn't necessarily give the other party an advantage in property division, the lawyer explained. But if you can prove economic abuse or deception, the situation is different. Over the next 2 months, Lucas maintained a normal married life on the surface while systematically collecting evidence in private. He hired professional investigators to track and record Elena and Victor's dates, discovering they not only met secretly in Buenos Aires, but had also traveled together multiple times to Uruguay and Brazil. Trips Elena had all claimed were business visits. More shockingly, Lucas found that Elena had transferred large sums from their joint account for personal investments, some of which went directly to Victor's gallery projects, investments that were made without Lucas's informed consent. Lucas's heart was filled with betrayal and anger, but his actions were unusually calm and restrained. He quietly organized his personal finances, transferring some funds to private accounts, ensuring he had sufficient economic independence. He purchased the luxury apartment in the Palermo district as a place to live after leaving, but never told Elena about this decision. He even began consulting a psychologist to help himself deal with the impending major change. "Are you sure you don't want to try to save this marriage?" the psychologist asked during one consultation. "Betrayal is not just physical infidelity," Lucas calmly replied. "It's a complete violation of shared values and commitments. Elena not only cheated, but she has thoroughly changed her values. The lifestyle she now pursues is fundamentally contrary to my essence. Even if she stopped her relationship with Victor, her obsession with the elite life would not disappear. We can no longer return to the past." On the eve of their 10th wedding anniversary, Lucas still held a glimmer of hope, fantasizing that Elena might reconsider their relationship because of this important date. He planned a special dinner, commissioned a platinum necklace engraved with the Latin abbreviation of their wedding vows. It wasn't until he received that message about working overtime and saw the photos on social media that he fully understood their marriage existed in name only. That night, Lucas left their shared home, taking all important personal items and documents. He didn't leave any note of explanation or accusation, just took everything that belonged to him, as if cleanly cutting away 10 years of marriage, like treating a wound that had already died. As he stood on the balcony of his new apartment, looking at the distant city lights. For the first time, he allowed himself to fully feel the pain of betrayal. But deep beneath the pain, there was also a strange sense of relief. Facing the truth was always better than living in lies. His phone kept receiving calls and messages from Elena, but he ignored them all. Tonight, he just wanted to be alone, to mourn the marriage he had once deeply loved, and at the same time prepare for the new chapter about to begin. The next morning, Lucas woke up feeling a calm he hadn't experienced in a long time. He made coffee, sat on the balcony enjoying a simple breakfast, planning his next actions. Just then, the doorbell rang urgently. Looking through the peephole, Lucas saw Elena standing outside, her makeup disheveled, obviously having not slept all night. He took a deep breath, preparing to face this inevitable confrontation. When he opened the door, Elena almost threw herself into his arms, her eyes filled with tears. "Lucas, what happened? Why did you leave? How could you just disappear on our wedding anniversary?" Her voice was full of confusion and panic. Lucas calmly stepped back, avoiding her embrace. "I think you know the reason very well. Elena, please come in. We should talk properly." Elena followed him into the apartment, her eyes quickly scanning the spacious, bright space, obviously shocked by the luxurious decoration and furniture. "What is this place? When did you buy this apartment? Why did you never tell me?" "About the same time you started dating Victor Montero," Lucas answered coolly. "I guess we all have our secrets, right?" Elena's face instantly turned pale. She opened her mouth as if to deny it, but under Lucas's calm and firm gaze, she finally just sat weakly on the sofa. "When did you find out? Does it matter?" Lucas asked in return. "What matters is that while I was preparing to celebrate our 10th anniversary, you chose to be with him and sent me a lying text message saying you were working overtime." "I can explain," Elena said urgently. "It's not what you think. Victor has been a great help to my career. He can bring my designs to the international stage. Last night was just a business dinner." Lucas shook his head, taking a folder from his briefcase. Inside, neatly arranged, were photos, hotel receipts, flight records, and bank transfer vouchers. "Stop lying, Elena. I have all the evidence. You've had at least 27 dates in different venues over the past 18 months, traveled together 5 times, and you've invested money from our joint account into his gallery projects without ever getting my consent." A flash of horror appeared in Elena's eyes, quickly turning to anger. "You had people follow me? How dare you invade my privacy like this? When you decided to betray our marriage vows, you had already violated my trust," Lucas calmly responded. "I was just protecting my own interests." The room fell into silence. Elena's anger seemed to slowly fade, replaced by a complex mixture of emotions. Finally, she said softly, "I don't want to lose you, Lucas. Whatever happened, we can work it out together. 10 years of marriage shouldn't end like this. It's already over." Lucas's voice was filled with determination. "In fact, it ended the moment you chose to betray." "I'm not asking for your opinion, Elena. I'm informing you of my decision. I've contacted a lawyer. Divorce papers are being prepared. Because of one mistake, you're going to throw away 10 years of love." Elena's voice became sharp. "Not one mistake, but a series of conscious choices," Lucas corrected. "You didn't just choose betrayal. You chose lies, chose to use our shared resources to support your infidelity, chose to spend our most important anniversary with him. These were all your choices, Elena, and now I'm making mine." Tears welled up in Elena's eyes, but Lucas was already immune to this emotional display. He had seen too many times how she could opportunely show emotion when facing clients or colleagues, knowing she was skilled at using tears as a weapon. "You can't just leave like this." Elena's voice became low, almost threatening. "We have shared property, shared social circles. You think you can easily walk away?" Lucas smiled slightly, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "On that point, you might be surprised. We'll see each other in court soon, Elena. Now, please leave my apartment." "You'll regret this, Lucas." Elena stood up, her tone mixing threat and plea. "Victor is not the kind of person you imagine, and our relationship is not just what you see on the surface. Give us a chance. Give yourself a chance." "I've already given myself the best chance to get rid of a relationship full of deception," Lucas calmly responded. "As for regret, the only thing I regret is not discovering the truth sooner. Goodbye, Elena." He firmly opened the door, indicating she should leave. Elena gave him one last look, complex emotions flashing in her eyes, then turned and left. As the door closed behind her, Lucas felt a sense of relief, but also knew that the real battle had just begun. Elena would not easily accept defeat, especially when defeat meant losing the perfect life she had carefully constructed. And Victor Montero, this seemingly elegant art dealer, what kind of true face and influence he hid behind remained to be revealed. Lucas understood that the road ahead would be full of challenges and difficulties, but he was prepared not only to fight for fairness for himself, but also to make the betrayers pay the price they deserved. As night fell again on Buenos Aires, Lucas stood on the balcony, watching countless twinkling lights in the city. Behind each light was a story, with laughter, tears, betrayal, and rebirth. Today, a new page had turned in his story, though filled with pain. It also contained new possibilities. He picked up his phone and called his longtime friend Carlos. "Old friend, I need your help. It's time to let certain people understand that some boundaries cannot be crossed, some betrayals cannot be forgiven. You know I'll always support you." Carlos's firm voice came through. "Whatever you need, I'm by your side." Lucas ended the call with a smile, his gaze determined. This was not just a divorce, but a carefully designed revenge. With the precision and patience of a structural engineer, he would destroy those who tried to destroy his life. What betrayers never understand is that true power comes from inner firmness and decisive action, not from superficial glamour and hypocritical relationships. In the days to come, Lucas would use the calmest, most rational, and also most lethal way to make Elena and Victor experience the true cost of betrayal. Part 2. A carefully designed revenge. Over the next 2 weeks, various rumors about Lucas and Elena Mendoza's marital crisis spread throughout Buenos Aires high society circles. Elena publicly claimed it was just a temporary separation to give each other space to rethink the relationship. She believed this was just a marital crisis that would soon be resolved. After all, she knew Lucas, knew he had always been so accommodating and understanding of her. However, Victor appeared unusually nervous about the situation. "How will this affect us?" Victor asked in a low voice at a secluded restaurant in the Palermo district, his eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. "How much does he know?" "Don't worry," Elena answered confidently, touching Victor's wine glass with her own. "Lucas may have discovered something, but he's not a fighter. He's always rational and restrained. He'll choose an amicable separation. Besides, what can he do? We haven't broken any laws." Victor frowned, wiping the corner of his mouth with a napkin. "I've known many people like Lucas, mild on the surface but extremely vengeful inside. Especially those engineer types who are good at long-term planning. Once provoked, they're often the most dangerous." Elena laughed lightly. "You're overestimating him. Lucas wouldn't risk damaging his professional reputation or social image, even for revenge. That's not his character." Victor didn't respond, just nodded thoughtfully. As someone who had navigated the art world and high society for decades, he had a deeper understanding of human nature than Elena and could better sense the approaching danger. Meanwhile, Lucas was receiving a special guest in his new apartment, Ricardo Fuentes, a senior building inspector with the Buenos Aires city government and an expert in architectural safety assessment. "Thank you for making time, Ricardo." Lucas handed a cup of mate tea to his old friend. "I know your schedule is tight." "For a college classmate, I can always make time," Ricardo smiled, sipping the hot tea. "Besides, you said this might involve public safety issues." Lucas nodded, taking out a stack of documents and blueprints from his briefcase. "These are the recent renovation plans for the Montero Art Gallery. I obtained these materials through certain channels. As a structural engineer, I've discovered several serious safety hazards." Ricardo carefully reviewed the documents, his expression gradually becoming serious. "These support column designs do indeed have problems, plus the seismic risk in Buenos Aires." The problem doesn't stop there. Lucas turned to another page, pointing to a series of data. "For aesthetic reasons, they've significantly reduced the dimensions of key structural components, and the materials used don't meet the safety standards for high-traffic public venues." Ricardo shook his head. "If this is true, it definitely requires immediate investigation." "But Lucas, this is related to your separation, isn't it? I've heard some rumors." Lucas didn't immediately answer. but walked to the balcony, looking into the distance. Yes, it's related to my personal situation, but it also concerns public safety. Victor Montero used my wife's yearning for elite circles to seduce her, while also using her professional skills to push through these dangerous design plans. Regardless of my private grievances with Elena, I cannot stand by and watch a public venue full of safety hazards continue to operate, with hundreds of visitors every day. Ricardo thought for a moment, then nodded. I understand. I'll arrange a formal safety inspection, but I must follow the rules, without any favoritism. That's exactly what I expect, Lucas said sincerely. I only ask for fair law enforcement. No more, no less. After Ricardo left, Lucas called his lawyer to confirm the progress of the divorce proceedings. Then, he began preparing the next step of his revenge plan, a deep investigation into Victor Montero's business empire. The meticulous and systematic thinking he had cultivated over years as an engineering project manager now came in handy. In the following week, the Montero Art Gallery received a sudden official safety inspection. The results confirmed Lucas's concerns. Multiple serious safety hazards were discovered, and the gallery was ordered to close immediately for rectification. This news caused a sensation in the art world, especially since an important international exhibition had to urgently change venues, causing Victor to lose a large deposit and reputation. This can't be a coincidence, Victor angrily told Elena on the evening the gallery was sealed. It must be your husband's doing. You can't always blame problems on Lucas, Elena responded wearily. Maybe it really was just a routine inspection that found issues. Victor gave a cold laugh. You're too naive. Your understanding of your husband is clearly not deep enough. That same day, Lucas had dinner with several colleagues and mentors from the construction industry. During the meal, he tactfully mentioned Victor Montero's recent projects and possible business problems, particularly emphasizing rumors about the lack of transparency in the use of funds by the Montero Art Foundation. As a respected professional in the industry, Lucas's words caught the attention of several engineering company executives who were also art sponsors. If this is true, the Montero Foundation may face a serious crisis of trust, a senior director commented. Our company donates a considerable amount to them every year to support art education programs. I've just heard some rumors, Lucas cautiously responded. But considering the recent exposure of the gallery's safety issues, perhaps it's worth taking a closer look at the foundation's financial situation. This conversation seemed like ordinary dinner table talk, but in the closely connected elite circles of Buenos Aires, it quickly caused a chain reaction. Within days, multiple companies sponsoring the Montero Foundation began demanding detailed financial reports and proof of project effectiveness. Faced with sudden scrutiny pressure, Victor was overwhelmed, having to cancel his planned weekend getaway with Elena to focus on handling this public relations crisis. Meanwhile, Lucas's lawyers submitted the divorce application to the court, along with a detailed property division proposal. To Elena's shock, Lucas had not only preserved ample evidence of her extramarital affair and financial misconduct, but also provided detailed usage records of all their joint accounts for the past 5 years, showing how Elena had diverted large sums to Victor-related projects, including several transfers recorded as business investments that were actually used to pay for the couple's luxury vacations. This completely changes the situation, Elena's lawyer told her seriously. The judge is very likely to favor his property division plan. More importantly, if these evidences are made public, they will cause serious damage to your professional reputation. Elena felt a wave of panic. But this is a private matter. It won't affect my profession, right? The lawyer gave her a meaningful look. In the design world, especially in your field which relies on the trust of high-end clients, personal integrity and professional reputation are inseparable. If clients believe you would betray those closest to you, how would they trust that you wouldn't deceive them in business dealings? These words kept Elena awake all night. The next day, she tried to contact Lucas, hoping to privately negotiate a solution beneficial to both parties, avoiding the reputation damage of a public trial. But Lucas's response was cold and resolute. We're already past the stage of negotiation, Elena. See you in court. Meanwhile, Lucas's revenge plan entered a deeper level. Through his extensive connections in the engineering world, he contacted several art dealers who had unpleasant business experiences with Victor. At a private gathering, he accidentally mentioned Victor's improper relationships with married women and how these relationships might influence business decisions. This information, like stones thrown into a pond, created ripples that eventually reached the ears of important figures in the international art market. Victor has a notorious record of using romantic relationships to influence business partners, a New York art dealer told Lucas. But most people keep silent because they fear offending him. He's very shrewd in choosing his targets, usually married women eager to enter higher levels of the arts circle, using their resources and connections. This information gave Lucas a new direction. He commissioned private investigators to deeply investigate Victor's relationship patterns, soon discovering that Elena was not the first married woman he had seduced. In the past 10 years, at least 5 women in situations similar to Elena's had affairs with Victor, and these relationships typically ended abruptly after Victor obtained the resources or connections he needed. More interestingly, several of these women's husbands had been important business partners or sponsors of Victor. Lucas realized that Elena was likely just another trophy in Victor's collection to be discarded mercilessly once her utility was exhausted. This realization didn't lessen his anger, but added a strange compassion. Elena, in her pursuit of the so-called elite life, was actually falling into a trap carefully designed by a skilled player. What happened to these women afterward? Lucas asked. Most got divorced, lost social status, the investigator answered. One attempted suicide, another moved abroad to start over. Victor is quite cruel when cutting ties, usually ensuring these women cannot maintain a foothold in their original social circles. Lucas frowned, contemplating this information. His revenge plan was initially aimed at Elena's betrayal, but now it seemed to have a greater meaning, stopping a habitual offender from continuing to harm others. Meanwhile, Elena's design studio began to encounter difficulties. Several important clients canceled their collaborations citing schedule conflicts, and a nearly signed major project suddenly announced it had chosen a competitor. Rumors began to circulate in the industry about her obtaining projects through improper relationships, and although no one openly accused her, those thoughtful glances and suddenly interrupted conversations were enough to make her feel uneasy. Worse, Victor began to distance himself from her. Since the gallery's safety crisis and foundation audit began, his attitude had obviously cooled, with phone and text replies becoming brief and perfunctory. When Elena suggested discussing their future, Victor always put it off, saying, "Now is not the time." One evening, after Victor canceled dinner for the third consecutive time citing emergency meetings, Elena decided to go to his apartment, hoping to clarify the situation face to face. When she arrived, through the window, she saw Victor sitting intimately on the sofa with a young woman, Sophia, a rising new designer who had recently entered the art world. Victor caressed Sophia's cheek, leaning in to whisper in almost the same way he had once done with Elena. In that moment, Elena experienced a terrible awakening, as if ice water had been poured over her head. She wasn't special, just another trophy in Victor's collection. Heartbroken and confused, Elena returned to her apartment to find an unsigned envelope in her mailbox. Inside was a stack of photos and records, showing Victor's relationship patterns with multiple married women in the past, and how these relationships rapidly ended after he got what he needed. There was also a note that read, "He won't stop unless someone stops him." Elena stared at this evidence, suddenly understanding the full picture of Lucas's revenge plan. He aimed not only to destroy her relationship with Victor, but to expose Victor's manipulation pattern over the years. This realization made her feel both humiliated and strangely relieved. At least now she understood the truth, although it was too late. "You finally understand." Elena jumped, looking up to see Lucas standing in the doorway, his expression calm and cold. "How did you get in?" she asked, trembling. "I still have a key, remember? This was our home, after all." Lucas walked in, looking around. "It seems Victor hasn't helped you maintain the lifestyle you're accustomed to." Elena noticed Lucas was dressed in a tailored suit, his demeanor confident, so different from the husband she remembered. During this time apart, he seemed to have become more determined, sharper, as if transformed into another person. "You did this on purpose," Elena said softly, pointing at the photos. "You knew how Victor would treat me, so you waited to watch me get discarded." Lucas shook his head. No, I just accelerated an inevitable process. Victor would have abandoned you even without my intervention. I just made sure that when it all happened, you had lost enough to truly understand the cost of betrayal. What do you want, Lucas? Elena asked wearily. You've already won. My studio is almost bankrupt, my clients are fleeing, and Victor has obviously moved on to his next target. How does revenge taste? This isn't about winning or revenge, Lucas calmly answered. It's about consequences and responsibility. Every choice has a price, Elena. You chose betrayal and lies. Now you're experiencing the natural results of those choices. Elena suddenly realized something. All of this was orchestrated by you, wasn't it? The gallery safety inspection, the foundation audit, the clients canceling contracts. Lucas smiled slightly, neither confirming nor denying. A good structural engineer always sees how various elements interact, how they perform under pressure. I simply applied my professional knowledge. You weren't this kind of person, Elena said softly. You used to be gentle, understanding, forgiving. I still am that person, Lucas responded. You just never truly understood my bottom line. Loyalty and honesty are not negotiable values for me. They are my foundation, just as buildings need solid groundwork. You shook that foundation, Elena, so the entire structure inevitably collapsed. He took a document from his briefcase, placing it on the coffee table. This is the revised divorce agreement. Considering your current financial situation, I've decided to adjust the terms appropriately. I don't want to see you on the streets, regardless of everything. We once loved each other. Elena looked at him in surprise. Why? After all this, are you still willing to make concessions? This isn't kindness, Lucas said frankly. I just don't want hatred to define the rest of my life. The revenge is complete. Now I need to move forward. He walked to the door, looking back one last time before leaving. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow to discuss the final details. Goodbye, Elena. After the door closed, Elena sat alone in the dimly lit living room, leafing through the divorce agreement. Lucas's terms were indeed more lenient than before, but on condition that she sign a complete confidentiality agreement, never publicly discussing the details of their marriage or separation. The subtext was clear. This was a reminder that Lucas possessed enough evidence to completely destroy her reputation, but he had chosen a relatively merciful path. Meanwhile, Lucas returned to his apartment, feeling a complex mixture of emotions, a sense of justice, satisfaction, a touch of compassion, but not the joy he had expected. The taste of revenge turned out to be so bland, almost empty. He walked to the balcony, gazing at the Buenos Aires night view, realizing that true release came not from punishing others, but from inner peace. The next day, a prominent newspaper in the financial district published a notable report. The Montero Foundation was under official investigation for financial misconduct. The article detailed how funds meant for art education had been diverted to personal luxury purchases and private travel. Although not directly mentioning Elena, the article did quote how multiple women close to Mr. Montero had been involved in these improper activities. This report caused an uproar in the art world. Victor immediately issued a statement denying the allegations, but the damage was done. Major sponsors began withdrawing funding. Partners distanced themselves from the Montero brand. More dramatically, after the press conference ended, Victor was seen arguing with Sophia, who apparently had also discovered she was just a pawn being used. A week later, Elena received a brief message from Victor. I'm sorry, we need to pause all contact. Legal advice is for me to distance myself from anyone who might be implicated in the Foundation investigation. Wishing you well. Just like that, without a face-to-face goodbye, without explanation, without any admission of wrongdoing. 18 months of passionate relationship ended with a cold message. Elena finally fully understood what Lucas meant by consequences. She had lost not only her husband, career, and social status, but also her self-dignity. The divorce proceedings went much more smoothly than expected. Elena accepted all conditions proposed by Lucas, including the strict confidentiality agreement. On the day of signing the final documents at the law firm, she looked haggard and aged, a stark contrast to the confident, radiant designer of a year ago. Is this it then? She asked softly after signing the last document. Yes, this is the end, Lucas calmly answered. Can you forgive me? Elena's voice was almost inaudible. Lucas was silent for a moment, then answered sincerely, I've let go of the anger, but some scars will never completely heal. I wish you well in the future, Elena, truly. But no, I won't forgive betrayal. He gave her one last look, then turned and left, carrying the memories and lessons of 10 years of marriage, but not looking back. 3 months later, the Montero Foundation officially declared bankruptcy, and Victor faced multiple criminal charges, including tax fraud and misappropriation of donated funds. His social status and influence in the art world collapsed overnight. More ironically, his gallery was forced to sell at a low price, and the buyer was a subsidiary of Lucas's company, planning to convert it into a community art education center. Elena left Buenos Aires, moving to a small city in Córdoba province, teaching basic design courses at a local community college. It was said that she posted a final message on social media. Betrayal is not a single choice, but an accumulation of small decisions, each seemingly harmless until looking back, you find you've crossed a point of no return. Cherish what you have, especially relationships built on sincerity and loyalty. As for Lucas, he declined the overseas project opportunity offered by his company, choosing to stay in Buenos Aires. He sold the apartment he had once shared with Elena, focused on developing his career, occasionally having dinner with his old friend Carlos, discussing architecture and football. On those quiet nights, he would sometimes reflect on his past marriage and the subsequent storm, not with regret or anger, but calmly accepting it as part of his life journey. In a late-night conversation with Carlos, Lucas confessed, I don't regret anything I did. Elena and Victor both received the consequences they deserved. But revenge didn't bring the satisfaction I expected. Instead, it taught me something more important. True progress isn't about punishing past betrayers, but building a new life they cannot touch. Carlos raised his glass in a toast. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, Lucas responded, but also to lessons. Some mistakes are worth making because they make us stronger, wiser, more appreciative of what truly matters. Under the lights of Buenos Aires, the two continued talking deep into the night, discussing life, choices, and consequences. On the other side of the city, a small exhibition opened at the newly renovated Community Arts Center with the theme Honesty and Mistakes. Among the exhibits was a large installation art piece made of broken mirror fragments, reflecting distorted faces of viewers, reminding people of the dangers of self-deception. The exhibition brochure quoted a line, Every lie is a betrayal of oneself. Every betrayal is a waste of life's most precious gift. Signed LM. The initials of Lucas Mendoza, a man who was once betrayed, but chose to rebuild his life with wisdom rather than hatred. As time passed, this story became a cautionary tale in Buenos Aires high society, reminding people of the value of loyalty and the cost of betrayal. Victor eventually sought refuge in a distant small South American country, far from his once glamorous life. Elena found a simple but authentic lifestyle in the small city, teaching young people to create beauty while warning them against false temptations. And Lucas, that seemingly mild but inwardly determined structural engineer, continued using his professional knowledge to build sturdy buildings, while also rebuilding his own life. A life founded on authenticity, honesty, and self-respect, which no one could easily shake. A seemingly perfect marriage may collapse in an instant, but true resilience lies in how to rebuild from the ruins. As Lucas often told his students, the strongest structures are not those that have never been challenged, but those that have experienced tremors, been reinforced, and rebuilt with new wisdom. On a winter afternoon 2 years after their separation, Lucas received an unexpected letter. The envelope had no return address. Inside was only a photo, a picture of him and Elena on their wedding day, with a simple sentence written on the back, I'm sorry. I hope you find someone worthy of your loyalty. Lucas gazed at the photo for a long time, then gently placed it in the deepest part of a drawer, closing that space filled with memories. He walked to the balcony, breathing deeply the fresh winter air of Buenos Aires. In the distance, newly built skyscrapers sparkled with glass brilliance, symbolizing the city's ever-advancing spirit. Like this city, like himself, no matter how many storms and betrayals experienced, true strength lies in moving forward, building a better future. Betrayal may destroy a marriage, but it should not destroy a person's soul. Lucas's story is not just about revenge, but about rebirth, not just about the cost of betrayal, but about the victory of maintaining inner integrity. In the architecture of life, honesty and loyalty are irreplaceable cornerstones. Without them, even the most gorgeous surface decorations will eventually collapse. If this story resonated with you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more compelling content. We look forward to meeting you in our next story.